Hey guys, it's Jeff from San Diego Seed Company, back on the channel for another video. This time it's about seed starting. I've got my tray of seeds already started. I just brought them out here to prove that I could do it. I know what I'm doing. I'm not just blowing smoke. So let me just put this to the side. But I also have an empty tray because we're talking seed starting today. I'm going to take you on a step-by-step journey from an empty tray to hopefully a full tray of soil and seeds just a few days from germinating. Let me talk about a little bit of what we're not going to cover. I'm not going to tell you what size trays to get. I'm not going to tell you how much to water or what soil to use. These are all decisions that you can make on your own. We have tons of videos about them, but what I really want to focus on is how do you seed start with success? What are some things that you need to do and not do to get to that success? So let's get started. The first thing we have to do is fill it up. Like I said, I'm not going to tell you guys what to use. I'm using potting soil. I'll get to one consideration that you're going to need to focus on if you do use potting soil, but the first step is just fill up your cups. When you're filling up your cups, don't fill them all the way. There's two reasons for this. One, if you're one of those people that sow seeds and then put a full ½ or ¼ on top of them, you're going to need space at the top of the cell. The other reason, let's say you aren't that person and you're just somebody who does the finger poke and then puts your seed down in, you're still going to want maybe like a ¼ to ½ of space on the top, because if you are a top waterer, you don't want the water to just flow off the top of the cell. So I have filled these up, but what you're going to see in a second is when I actually water these in, I'm going to use a little force and it's going to push the soil level down just a bit. Before I do that, I am going to go ahead and take out just a little bit by scraping. Okay, so here's a quick tip. When you are watering in your soil, put your seeds in your pocket. Don't leave them right next to it and then soak the pack and then the paper gets wet and then all the seeds germinate. Save yourself some headache. Get those away from the water. You'll notice when I sprayed, I was not on a mist setting. I mentioned it before, but I'm spraying to kind of compress the soil just a little bit. Not too much. You definitely don't want to compact it or then the roots can't grow, but you do want to give it a little bit of a push so it's a little tighter together. Okay, so here's the next tip. Plant tags. This is obvious, but I'm going to share it just because I like to overshare. You're always going to want to put the variety so you know what it is, because all tomatoes look the same, roughly, so you're going to want to know if it's aroma that you're putting in at the right place. I always put the date, and then since I do this inside before I get out here, I'm going to put how many that I want to grow, because I have all that information on the computer. And the final tip that took me way too long to realize is use a pencil. Don't use a pen. Pen will fade in the sun, pencil does not fade in the sun, and you can erase it and you don't have to buy new plant tags every season. So the way that I am going to label my seeds is like a book. I'm going to start in the upper left. I'm going to say Roma, here's 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then when I get to the next plant tag, I know everything from there on is going to be a jalapeno, and I need 4 of those. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then Desi Sun Gold, 1, 2, 3, and the Sweetie Cherry, 1, 2, 3. Now, the only reason I do this is because I don't always plant either 8 or 4. If you're always planting 8 or 4, obviously just label the row or the column. This helps me to get a different number each time. As I mentioned earlier, there are 2 ways to start seeds. You can fill your soil about a ½ inch from the top, put the seed on top, and then put a full ¼ inch on top of that. Or you can fill your seed tray to where you want them to be and then make a tiny divot. The reason you've heard Brigitte talk about not doing it this way is because a lot of times people will just jam their finger all the way to their first or second knuckle. When I say make a divot, I literally mean don't get your fingernail dirty. You're just using the very tip of your finger, just like that. And then when you have to put soil on top, you don't have to put quite so much. It's just a little sprinkling. So I've got my divots. Let me find my tomato seeds and I'll show you a few tips on how to actually sow them with success. Okay, first tip is, and you really don't have to worry about this with our seeds because they're always really good, but if you are on a budget and you're buying cheap seed, if a seed looks black or just doesn't look right, throw it off. It's likely not a very healthy seed and it's not going to germinate. The other one is, a lot of people just want to put one seed and then pray to God that the seed actually comes up. I recommend, depending on the size of the seed, I kind of put it on a sliding scale. Really big seeds like melons and squash, I just put one in the ground. It's big enough, I know it's going to come up. With smaller seeds like peppers and tomatoes, maybe 2. If I'm doing an herb that's got like almost microscopic seeds, I'm going to put 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, who knows how many, to give the biggest chance of survival for those seeds. These are tomatoes, so I'm going to do my best to put about 2 in. I got 3 in there, that's fine. I highly recommend only doing one variety at a time, otherwise you're going to forget. So I've got 6 cells of tomatoes. Let me put the soil on top. Now's the time, if I were planting a smaller seed like a cruciferous, maybe a broccoli or a cabbage, or definitely like a dill seed or something really tiny, I'm going to go into the kitchen, get my sifter out, and add some soil to the sifter and sift out some of these big chunks. With tomatoes, they're such vigorous, healthy growers that you don't really need to do that, so I'm not going to do it here. Remember, with tomatoes, you're only looking for about 1/4 of an inch on top. I've already made my divot 1/4 of an inch, so I'm just going up to the soil level. Now, even though tomato seeds are pretty vigorous, I am still gonna, after I flatten this out, I'm gonna look for any big sticks or rocks sometimes get in seed starting mix or potting soil and get those out of there just to give my guys the best chance of survival. Okay, there's really only one more step and then a couple pieces of advice at the end, but let me finish this tray out first. One last thing to do, you guys guessed it, water. As we've said over and over on the channel and on our website, that moisture is the #1 reason a seed doesn't germinate. So we're going to give this as much of a chance to germinate as possible by giving it a lot of water. Now when I watered in before I put the seeds in, I had it kind of on a heavier rain setting. I'm definitely not going to want to do that now. I'm going to put it on a mist and just lightly mist the top of the soil until it soaks through. If I didn't do that, the soil is going to bubble up over the top and the seeds are going to go everywhere and just who knows what's going to happen. So definitely mist for this setting. If you happen to watch our 4 myths video when it comes to seed starting, you don't need light at this point. You can put them into your office or inside, outside, it doesn't matter. You don't necessarily need light. If you do put light on them, or if you are in a greenhouse or outside, just make sure you keep them moist every single day. That doesn't mean you need to water every day, but you do need to check them at least once or twice a day to make sure that first top inch of that soil always stays moist. If it dries out, the seed dries out, you're cooked. It's not going to work. The other thing is, if you're planting peppers, they like really hot soil, so we always recommend a heat mat. Tomatoes can get away with not using a heat mat depending on how warm it is inside. It's not going to hurt them to use a heat mat, but do remember, if you are using a mat, as soon as they come up, that last one comes up, you can turn the heat mat off. If you leave it on too long, the plants are just going to grow too fast and get leggy, and you don't want that. And when you take them from a heat mat directly into the garden, that's not a very good transition for the plants, so definitely turn that heat mat off.